Oh yes, I thought I'd talk about the return of the king, the Lord of the Rings famous Middle Earth novel by that South African who introduced and helped support apartheid in South Africa along with communism. So the first thing was that I did visit a cemetery in London, or outside of London, and was followed to the cemetery by a well-dressed woman who was unable to come into the cemetery. I figure she's probably a journalist or a spy, or could be anything, government agent, Labour Party person, could be anything. What happened with my return flight was it was delayed 8 hours until the time of my birth, 3:30 a.m., and then made what they described as a historical peacetime first flight all the way from London to Adelaide, non-stop. There's plenty of fuel on those jets, jumbo jets, and if you're not doing it to sort of skim more and more and more money off the passengers, it's very simple. So the first flight back to Adelaide, within a couple of weeks I had a post box at the area where the heroin dealers had moved in, where there were 5 high schools, Scotch College, what was the other one, Mitcham Girls, Unley, and there was another one, Mercedes, and they would leave messages for me when I'd go to my post box. For example, I think I've told this story before. I'd usually go there on a Friday or Saturday evening, take about 3 hours to complete the whole journey, and on this particular evening they left I don't know, some hundreds of Scientology, what are they called, pamphlets, and an empty wine bottle or cask or something. And apparently what they'd done interstate is murder some man in Canberra named Donald Mackay, who apparently was a anti-drugs campaigner, whereas I wasn't a campaigner. I simply researched organised crime at 4 different universities and found, for your information, just so you understand the stupidity it works at, heroin and cocaine, but heroin majority, with the law schools, the law faculties. And it had been explained to me earlier by sort of like extortionists and things like that, that it's Irish Alice Bailey, with her creed saying Christians take drugs. And so that's the official, apparently, Labour Party policy. Christians don't go to church, Christians don't love other women or men, Christians don't read books, Christians, don't listen to pop records, Christians take drugs. and there were a lot of quote-unquote Christians nearby to the post box who I assume now took drugs. The sort of drugs that would be non-stupefying. Anyway, so that was Donald McKay, who was murdered by, we'll just assume, Don Dunstan, let's just assume he was murdered by Don Dunstan government and the advertiser run by Fox something or other, where that idea came from, occult American practices, the Fox sisters, and so the biggest media company in the world was 20th Century Fox. And so the newspaper, Fox newspaper or something, blah, 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 and that's what they do. But my understanding or interpretation of the whole mess is that, or I read about this as well, there was an organisation where an Indian yogi went to America and for some unknown reason, within 2 weeks was at the White House meeting the President of the USA. He lived in abject poverty, was not interested in earning any money. But then a billionaire came along and donated a hell of a lot of money to him, and he started his worldwide organisation, which, if my eyes don't deceive me, supported the Nazis in Germany. And so at the height of the Nazi occupation of the free parts of Europe, he was visiting Germany on a secret mission. And, that's about all there is to think about. It's an interesting explanation they give, that organisation. They say that what we do is when someone dies, we get energy from them in the form of their spirit. Now, the Fox sisters were saying you can communicate with dead people, but this teaching, as supported by that billionaire, was saying when someone dies, we get energy from it in the form of their spirit. And so the more people who die, the more energy they get. And so what you had was billions and billions killed, and supposed COVID virus, millions killed, and revolutions, and all sorts of things. Millions killed, and the more who are killed, they get energy from it via their quote-unquote spirits. I personally don't believe spirits exist, you see. But that's where that idea originated from. Let's see, what happened? When I was in Europe, though, I went there because in London there were just too many criminals. They sort of hang around and wait for tourists, I guess, or anybody, so they can rob them. In England, it's a tradition. It's a traditional way of life for them. So I left and went up to Europe, where the same type of thing was going on. I think perhaps there were some mountain ranges in a place called Switzerland. You know, you've probably heard of the Swiss Army knife with 10 blades. People were sort of friendly there, but unfortunately, the British rock and roll campaign was using Swiss people, teenagers, with all sorts of, rock and roll bands like Pink Floyd, Burning Bridges. And so when I was in Switzerland, somebody burnt the wooden bridge I was walking on across the lake, burnt it up. Paris was okay, but I was a bit wary because I knew something about the communes in Paris, how before when they chopped off the heads of the royals, or some of them, they had communes, or what they called communes, which aren't necessarily communists aren't necessarily, but they keep changing the meaning. But anyway, back in Australia, the most, let's just say the remarkable fact was that when that guy Donald Mackay, the campaigner, you see, was killed that Friday or Saturday when I went to my mail, the people who did it left their confession. They were Scientologists who killed him. And Scientology is sort of like a religion here in South Australia, run by state police and heroin dealers. And in USA was founded by supposedly a state policeman named L. Ron Hubbard. And he's not Shakespeare the Bard, but if you've ever read Shakespeare, what you find his plays are all about is killing people murdering each other, people killing themselves, pouring poison into their ears, but his poetry was slightly different because he's got sonnets. Yeah. Like those Paris communes had nothing to do with, as far as I'm aware, communism. They weren't communist communes, but they were called communes. Yeah, cheers. But to show you the level of Australia communism and organised crime and spiritism, there was a place in Unley where they had a spiritist place where they could talk to the dead. And so when I was in Paris, I met a schoolgirl who was really happy to see me. I wasn't very happy to see her because I wasn't well dressed. She was in her school uniform, of course. Oh, no, she wasn't. No, she was in her school uniform. And she gave me her name and phone number. Her name was Genevieve. In a previous incarnation, she was the patron saint of Paris, France. So, goodbye, Genevieve, Holy One. And then, you know, back in Australia, the thing they wanted was in their, well, how to put it, the place is run by organised crime. Is specifically since Kennedy was killed by people who killed him, people who fired the golden finger that pulled the trigger of the gun. George Harrison, famous Beatle, he was intimate knowledge of what the mafia guys did when they shot JFK. Sort of thing. They don't want to communicate with his spirit as he's dead. They want to say, well, I don't know what they want to do. They want to expand the empire or something, or get everybody to do rock and roll because you know they have a factory where a black blob of something gets placed on the thing, and the factory thing comes down and squashes the black mass, and it becomes a record, an EP or an LP or something like that, and it has grooves in it just by squashing it. And it's like making wine, according to Mick Jagger. You know, Mick Jagger, it's like making wine. Only problem is that I'm not interested in wine of any type whatsoever. To give you an example of just how desperate they have been here, one high school teacher who was used by to impeach Republican Richard Nixon, I won't say what his name was, but they had done a pop song about him in terms of lemonade, as there was a brand of lemonade based on his name. And he was saying, when the Russians come, drink vodka, or drink vodka. And the lessons from California were saying, well, when the Russians come, add some orange juice to that vodka. So I won't go into the details of how many people they murdered and stuff like that. How many local killings, overseas killings, coordinated in part by Neighbourhood Watch people. Yeah, but I won't say I didn't meet a few normal people in that area, but mostly they were all sort of, psycho killers, bent on, making the commune real. So, well, I just forgot what I was thinking. Oh yeah, but the postman, the official postman, the only reason they had a postman is because everything was done through letters. And the postman, being a very bright, quick-thinking man, who had the Beatles do a song about the whole postman union, would take note of who the mail was from, what country. From Britain, for example, they never put a name on the envelope. You get an envelope, even from a British politician, they never put the name or return address on the envelope. But some Europeans did put a name and on the envelope, and Americans always did that. And what I found is airmail from America only took 4 or 5 days. But what am I thinking about? You see, they had said to themselves, okay, now what's he going to do about this killing we did? What's he going to do about that? What's he going to do about killing and taking over his post box? What's he going to do about that? Because they believe actions speak louder than words. Which is why so many, let's call them higher beings, stopped speaking, such as that Meher Baba, or those Indians who were living in America, or some Catholic saints who stopped talking, because actions speak louder than words. Okay, what was I thinking? They have, in recent months, demolished the Spiritist Centre, the house that was the Spiritist Centre in the 1920s on Green Hill Road. And what else? The reason they're doing it is because there was an advertising campaign in America, a band based upon a 1965 Grace Slick, I Believe Only in Hell statement. So the advertising campaign for the local, important communist, centrally placed communist, came out and described them in terms of, but I'll say before that, described them in terms of, the devil, because they don't have any higher experiences. They don't aspire to any higher experiences, or God forbid spiritual experiences. Their level of comprehension of reality is just, slightly above devil worship, or spiritism, which was the basic foundation of the state. So the advertising was by a band called The Band, and this is directly from from what's her name, that woman who believes only in hell, Grace Slick, but that isn't her real name. I believe she might be Italian, but that's not her real name. The band, and the idea was they did advertising for some, pretty well-centered placed communist named Fanny, and her husband, who's the devil, because they don't think much. They had no comprehension of anything good, really, above the idea of Satan, the devil, the black. We blacks, we South Africans, or we kill people and we go to war and we die. And the joke about that, by the way, is I read this somewhere. When you died on the fields in France, semen, male sperm, seeds were let go, and you put you had sex with the fields in holy France. Sort of stupid idea. Anyway, well, that's about all. Let's see, how long is this? Oh boy, this is going on for a long time. But I will tell you that the postman noticed the stupid what's he called, the Vatican, that 77, or was it 78 mailing, they very stupidly put their address on it. Postman noticed it, and since that, they got even more serious and expanded their scope to international, mass murders. So they could, get some energy from their spirits. I don't believe any religion per se believes that. Even the Anglican Church doesn't really believe in spirits. You know what I mean? Like that's the newspaper here believes in spirits. The basis of the state was spiritism. So what sort of screwed up place is this? Well, it's pretty funny place. So I can't think of anything else. Oh, they saw that and did a big conspiracy, poisoned some people in France with uranium. What else? So, just all sorts of really stupid, but actions speak louder than words, thanks. Here, for example, there's where the bad guys were living who somehow had a key to this place. The state government passed laws to enable this guy who had a girlfriend named Beverly, who I met on a train, moved to where Unley High School was, stay there, suss out the situation, make some contacts, buy some properties in various places. That David Lynch movie, by the way, Lost Highway, that's about heroin dealers, and also this guy with Beverly, as the heroin dealers had a name, which was similar to the band, the Eagles, put me on a highway, show me a sign, a name very similar to that, but not the same. And they were sort of like the distributors, the people who deliver packs of heroin in a whole lot of places. And it's funny that the guy in number and then they passed a law to legalise heroin. No, I mean to sell government properties to people, and the guy we're thinking about bought one and used it for just a totally criminal organisation. And, some of the places that I stayed in before I realised this place is run by heroin dealers. The whole thing from top to bottom. He owned it. He had one colour scheme. Must have got a big pot of paint and painted the places up. He saw it as an investment to pursue that, and bought this place because the government changed the law. You can buy one of these places too. Used it from the day I moved in to the day I moved out, or the day I died, for just an unbelievable criminal conspiracy. Unbelievable. Overseas contacts, unbelievable criminal conspiracy. So that was the state was aiding and abetting, the mafia. Because there's a confession that's been on YouTube now for a year or something, where one character says, I was working for the CIA, I was in Laos, I was in Cambodia, I was in Mexico too, South America sort of thing. Was saying, oh yeah, but I got a family, kids. They don't pay you very much. They don't pay you enough. So I joined the mafia, and Mr. Johnny, I don't forget his name, Roselli or something like that, would tell him, well, you got to kill this guy this week, next week kill this guy next week. And that's why George Harrison, who apparently joined the mafia, Italian mafia, would sing songs about Johnny, because he is a place called Johnny's, and used for the opposite to religion. Then, of course, there was the Mexican guy, Carlos Castaneda, who did his books about jumping off a cliff and, sweating and all sorts of things like that. Bestseller book, just a pack of lies. Because I think it was Charles de Gaulle, the Carlos the Jackal, attempted to kill President Charles de Gaulle a long time ago, before Kennedy, and something went amiss, and instead of shooting him, the bullet hit the ground. And that was when our family had a French imported Peugeot car, nice car, but it was sort of with gears and stuff. It was right-hand drive, but the mass, that's called Scientology. You see that the idea of world communism, create world communism, not communes, not places where people are free, but communism. And so, for example, David Lynch, that guy, David Lynch, Lost Highway. Well, we'll get rid of the Eagles, put me on the highway, swap identity to the local Scientology heroin dealers, and lose that, and then go to all the quote-unquote captured nations and show his movie Lost Highway. But when I was back in Europe, I didn't really want to go and visit any of those captured nations, because they were all, run by what were called state security, or the Stasi, or the secret police, who were part of the government. Apparently they even got to vote, and when, who's going to be the next leader, they could vote. Well, we want this guy, not that guy, we'll shoot that guy in the back, we'll kill this guy, and that's who we want. That's why David Lynch movies are quite fascinating, really. I mean, they're just fascinating. So I'll just end by saying, every time I wanted to return to the Northern Hemisphere, specifically Republicans, there's a pub here called the Republic Hotel. And what these guys who are working with this guy number 4 were doing was focusing on the Republic Hotel, because Italy is a republic, and at one stage the Communist Party of Italy formulated a plan to take over and also kill some people who were published in a book that the Hughes people off in Plimpton created as a publishing house in London. So the Italian Communist Party, or what they call Communist Party, decided to, we'll kill some of these people, and we'll do this and that and that. And I just happened to be one of the people that the Italian Communist Party wanted to kill. So that meant that the heroin dealers, he wanted to kill me. The German Nazi Party from a place called Brighton, they wanted to kill me. State police as well. They'd already taken over the identity of school friend Robert Stevens, and also the State Education Department and the niece who came from Africa, South Africa. Oh boy, I tell you, they don't have much on their minds. So what was I saying? So every time I tried to leave the country, one might simply say that the Labour Party stopped me leaving the country. That simple. I will tell you a funny one. I redirected some weird mailing I got from a state government or some body in South Australia. Now this is top secret. I redirected it to the United States Embassy in Canberra, and next thing you know, the candidate, what's his name, Donald Trump, he was doing a self-realization fellowship technique of listening in your left or your right ear when somebody, a marksman, perfect shot, got him in the ear. Well, that's the self-realization teaching. You got to listen in your left or your right ear. And so I'm never going to contact them again, and I sure as hell don't want to go to the United States either. Okay, well that's about the end of it. So the character number 4, running some huge political criminal organisation, etc., etc. But final thing though. Now, talk about, speaking to the dead. Now these are really clever people who believe in witchcraft and, worship. They don't even necessarily believe in a spirit. If anything, they sort of think like Egyptians, where the physical body, it is the worshipful item. And so there was a grave, a new cemetery, 1946-47, up Panorama Way, where the Minister of Propaganda for Hitler had been buried in 1947. And the propaganda said, we flew to Scotland on a peace mission and blah, blah, blah. And then they had 2 different faces, 2 different people who were the propaganda minister of the Nazi Party. Which is interesting because here the state colours are the German colours. But they exhumed his body. Removed the tombstone, took his coffin away, to worship the bones and the remains and so on of the propaganda minister. And what you got to understand is in places like Australia, Britain, some European countries, India, not so much China, they do have a department of propaganda. In America, USA, particularly when the Republicans are there, they also have something similar to a department of propaganda, but they don't need to call it propaganda because it just takes on the form of what they call their political system. So when Rudolf Hess, they'd already, anyway, when he was exhumed, number one, first grave in the brand new cemetery, where they removed his coffin, as well as the tombstone and all the rest of it. The party, the German, let's call them Nazi party, went into full gear again. Now, the SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship in California, they've started sort of like lauding, praising German Nazi party, in a subtle way. And so when I completed a 1-year diary that they sent me, it's a very interesting diary because I would have quotes from their guru, who first month he was in America and met the president, and what would come from the words that he were recorded would be just a white light. And one had to then, counter it or think about it or something like that with what you're thinking. And so I had a diary about, today they came in and poured water everywhere, or they stole my car and dumped it there, or one headlight of the car suddenly stopped working, or the Russians across the street, or the mafia in the house next door, that sort of just trivial, tiny little thing. And then one day the diary went missing when it was complete, and used as the headline in Stern magazine, Germany. So that was interesting to know how the world of journalism was also able to propagate an ideology of, like Doctor Who, the British TV show, exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. They did it openly, but you'd have to have some sort of idea of reality or truth to know it's not just a fantasy, it's not just a joke. So the last thing I'll say is that one school teacher I met long ago who went to the education department to learn to be a school teacher, because it's not psychological warfare. Teaching isn't psychological warfare. And he was saying that their jokes are all based on sadomasochism, and that could mean anything from people join the police force to manifest their sadomasochism, or they do a song about someone whose initials are SM to manifest their sadomasochism. And they're called British, and that's Fortress Europe, Fortress Britain, and it's really the end of the story for the British, believe it or not, really the end of the story for them. Okay, so yeah, it was interesting. They took my diary and were able to put a headline on, what's it called? Stern magazine, saying Hitler's diaries have been found. The previous great headline was Maharishi on the headline, teaching meditation. But when I was in Europe, my sort of approach to the whole thing was, they're sort of all living in a zoo. Germans, they're all living in a zoo. They're probably taking lots of drugs, apart from the beer and stuff like that. Don't think I want to go to the left, because Germany was on the left divided, split, and went where I wanted to go, where there were some not huge populations, friendly people, people who weren't afraid of sex, or heroin for that matter. They weren't afraid of it. Like that Scientology guy in the 20s or something did a book called Fear, because he wanted you to fear heroin. Because at the time, heroin was just taking over the whole country. Millions and millions and millions of people took heroin because it was dirt cheap. Okay, so that'll be the end of it. Now, as I said, and then Paris and met the reincarnation of the patron saint of Paris, who wasn't tortured to death. But here in Adelaide, South Australia, those well-placed communists now have a picture of an artist's impression of the patron saint of Paris. They also have their man in New South Wales, and they had their man take over Dr. Linden's office, and it's just really terrible what they're doing, because like, for example, they showed this thing from France the other day on France 24 News, new housing development identical as the housing where Audi's store was. And they tried to stop me going to Audi's. Some heroin dealers from Brighton had parents who would try to stop you going to Audi's. And the interesting thing about that area, Marine Parade, Brighton, seemingly is there's some government facility for persons with a particular type of disease that's incurable and has something to do with affecting your nerves or your brain maybe, or just the way you develop, and that's been there ever since. The thing about the Americans, though, they were saying 2 weeks ago, we're not going to use Marines anymore, like Marine Parade or anything. We use different people nowadays. Alright, so yeah, they tried to stop me going into Audi, and then these Japanese who were still allied to socialist Germany, they killed their prime minister and tried to stop me going into Audi's to get some food for myself. And it's really great little place, Adelaide. Really great little place. Everything is make-believe. Everything is imagination, fantasy, and spirits, and and as far as I know, they don't brew anything much apart from wine. The breweries are interstate, but they're doing wine, because wine is pretty cheap to make. It's really easy. They've got a government department about making wine, that sort of thing. Really cheap. But I will tell you where their problem arose one day when a guy was advertising Lord of the Rings and Maharishi and drinking wine, and he had a surprise experience where his wine turned to water. And that thereafter caused a lot of problems, because the people belonging to the Divine Light Mission, as I said, the first place they went to, 72, was the town where Kennedy was shot. and their little guru, 8 years old or something, was spray painting them with water that had been coloured, to wash away the blood of the saints and the martyrs, and replace it with, just Indian, Indian murder. And if you look at America now, there's no saints, there's no martyrs there anymore. There's not anyone who even aspires to it. And that's much a pity. It might, resurrect itself or revive itself. But with Donald Trump, he's got to be the most hilarious, motherfucking... Oh, sorry, excuse my language. He's got to be one of the most hilarious type of drug dealers they've ever had. A total phony, you could say. But apparently the Republicans believe that the president is their God. So I'll just forget that, finish this, and say the bottle shop, the wine shop is closed, and I've got a sign on my front door saying communists keep out. I'm not meant to reiterate my posting on Twitter. I've not met an honest person here since being overseas, and that flight, direct from London to here, part of a conspiracy. Haven't met one honest person. Okay? You'll just have to live with it. Bye now.